Good morning, everyone. I'm starting a few minutes later today. As you realize, we just sent out the registration links or the links for the webcast. There was a configuration error in our marketing systems. We do apologize for that. So I'll wait a few more minutes before we start, probably 2 minutes past 10. And then we crack on with today's webinar. So please be patient and I'll speak to you in a second. Right, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webcast. My name is Harold Buter. I'm a pre-sales consultant for Arcserve EMEA North, and I'll be your host today. In today's topic, we actually will cover solutions for Office 365 that Arcserve provide for the market. So what we see in today's market is a lot of people are switching over to cloud-based solutions like Office 365, and that's where we help customers around to build solutions, because with Office 365 not everything is what it is like and what it says on the tin, to be honest. So what we try to do is help our customers to understand what's going on with Office 365, but also how we can help them. Now today's agenda, how we run this webcast, it's about 45 minutes ish. And we have a couple of slides that we run, and then I will show you a demonstration of two products that we use for Office 365 today. If there are any questions, please use the questions box in the bottom of your webinar tool, and we will cover them at the end after the demonstration, and we go through all the questions, and please feel free to ask. So with that, let's get started. And I will focus first of all a little bit on the Arcserve side of things itself. Just one thing. So we've been Arcserve. If you know us, we've been in the market for a very long time. We've been very successful. We have a lot of great customers and great partners around in the world, and they help us to drive and do a lot of business with us. Since 2014, we are an independent company. Before that, we were part of Computer Associates, and before that was CN Software. And up to now, we have about 27,000 customers on the UDP suite, which is our new product, which was released in 2014. So we're doing extremely well. We're based in the US. Our headquarters in the US, Minneapolis, and our European office is based in EMEA. Now, we're well recognized by the industry, and as you can see, I'm not going to bore you with all these titles, but as you can see, we have a lot of recognition in the market side of things. Now, the way we go to the market is a couple of ways. We provide software, we provide hardware appliances with our software on top of it, and we have cloud solutions. Now, today I'll be covering our solutions, and they cover all 3 points. So you can use the software, the appliances, or the cloud, obviously. So with that introduction of Arcserve, let's go into the market slides and let's go a bit into the Office 365 things. Many of you might use already Office 365, many of you might contemplating, and what we can see in the market is that a lot of people are actually adopting Office 365. Personally, I'm a great fan of Office 365. I used to be an IT administrator for many years, and I did a lot of Exchange service, and probably some of you still are or have been the same experience. And the thing with Exchange server is, of course, that you do have to have it on premise. It's a lot of capital expenditure that you have, and on top of that, there's a lot of administration overhead. Whereas with Office 365, it makes life a lot easier on the email side of things. And on top of that, you get your Office 365 or your Office suite licenses and a lot of more functionality. Now, what we see more and more, of course, Microsoft is adopting a lot more technology into it, a lot more collaboration into it, like the team, like Yammer, like SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., etc. So these are all things that help thriving Microsoft's business on the Office 365. So we see a lot of growth in Microsoft 365, and this slide for Microsoft itself, you can see it as well. They see a lot of growth for their suite as well, and that keeps continuing into it. However, there are some limits that you have to think of, and this is a lot of things that people don't realize. When you go with Office 365, the one thing is it doesn't take away the responsibility for you as an IT team or as an IT organization. So for instance, if you have any emails that are lost or email boxes that are lost, within Office 365 there's a maximum retention of 90 days on it. After that it will be lost forever. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't realize. There are some additional plans and features for the more expensive features that you can enable with Office 365, but you have to double check that on how to achieve that. But most common is that people actually lose their emails after 90 days, and that's not a good thing. And of course, where email is more and more important for organizations, especially in legals and in stuff like that, it can be used as proof points and God knows what. It is very important to keep track on your emails. Now, the other thing is, of course, where do you store your emails? Now, within Office 365, the data location depends on the region you set. So if you have an EMEA region, you're somewhere in Europe. Don't know exactly where in Europe, but you are somewhere in Europe. If you set the US, then you're somewhere in the US. So make sure you're actually aware of where your data sits, because in some countries it is very important to know where your data sits, including your email data. Not only for backup, but also what we see with archiving. Office 365 does provide a very rudimental version of archiving, and it's an archiving that's more or less for the users itself, but it does not provide compliancy and legal and litigation hold in such. So it is important for emails or for email record management that emails are actually stored and not tampered with, and that is a very important side of thing. Next to that, it is very important that the emails cannot be removed out of the system for legal reasons. So if, for instance, an audit needs to search for a lot of emails regarding a legal case, the emails need to be there and cannot be tampered with or alternate or stuff like that. So that is a quite important functionality. The archiving within Office 365 is purely an archiving functionality, like a PST functionality. So it's very limited in those cases. So if you need a kind of email archiving solution that provides more, that provides you a compliancy and legal set, then you need to look further. So this is where we come into play. So the Arcserve Portfolio, it's a great portfolio. I'm very proud to be working for Arcserve, to be honest. And the objective for Arcserve has always been to provide enterprise capabilities, but keep it simple for everyone. And I think they are true to the heart on that sort of thing. So I don't know if some of you have seen these slides, but we provide a simplified console. We have 4 pillars in our UDP suite, which is high availability, which provides 0 RPO, so asynchronous replication of data and you can fail over applications or full service, whether it's physical or virtual. Or we can provide disaster recovery for virtual physical service in terms of providing instant virtual machines, virtual standbys, cross-hypervisor technology, etc. If you would like to know more of these topics, we do have other webinars. So on the Friday we do a webinar on UDP itself, the backup product itself. So that goes a bit more about instant VM and virtual standby and the backup and recovery. And I think twice a month or once a month we do a replication and high availability webcast where we do actually demonstration of SQL failovers. Now the last pillar, that's where one of the things that we will cover today. So we will cover the backup and recovery and archiving today, specific on Office 365. So I will mention that in a bit more in depth. Now our engine, we have a great engine, and the engine provides deduplication, provides nice scheduling, replications, etc., etc. The most important thing is that we keep it simple for you with a very good console. Now, if I look into the market itself, there's a misconception. A lot of people think that archiving is backup. but that's not true at all. So I just want to alleviate a little bit on this. So the backup is about recovery. It's about go back to a point in time. Used for if data is deleted, is removed, you need to recover from a point in time. That's where you use the backup side of things. But archiving is about discovery and collection of data objects, and the purpose is more about preservation, retention, combining with search capabilities. So, for example, your organization, you need an email across the organization, not from a single user, but from multiple users in terms of a legal case that's going on. You need to find something quite quickly and make a list, a report out of that. That's why archiving comes into place. So that's a bit of the difference between the two. If I looked at a bit more into our side of things, so if you have the Office 365, we provide the backup and the restore. We provide a granular restore of your backup. So you can back up your calendar items, you can back up your email items, obviously, you can back up all the items, but you can store them locally in what we call a recovery point service. Now that recovery point server is installed on premise. You can install it in Azure if you want to, on Amazon. You can install it on multiple locations, but you have that copy offsite on a location that is set by yourself. After that, you can create actually an offline copy of that. You can replicate it even further to other locations or to tape if you would like to. So you have that option, so you can actually go from Office 365 all the way to tape if there is a need to it. Now, the email archiving is a capture for compliancy. I call it more, it's an email record management system, if I may say so. It's more to do with that. It provides that search and discovery. And the way we deploy that is we actually set up a journaling rule with Office 365. We capture all the emails, and that will go into an Arcserve UDP archiving server. There is a virtual appliance, and I will show that a little bit later, that can be installed on your Hyper-V or VMware environment if you want to. Okay. So to set a little bit of scene for today, so about UDP. UDP works with what I mentioned already, a recovery point server. And traditionally, what we do is we take the backup of our physical service, virtual service, and the virtual service will be agentless backup, and the physical service will be done with an agent. And the first backup that we do is a full backup. Once the full backup is done, we do an infinite incremental backup. And once that is finished, then we keep on doing the incrementals afterwards. Now, on top of that, we have what we call global deduplication. So the global deduplication means that we can actually replicate the data across to other locations, but only the unique blocks. So we store only unique blocks. Now, there's a little difference between the backup of Office 365 and the physical. So the physical service and the virtual service, etc., there are block level backups. However, the Office 365 is an item level backup solution because we can't get into block level to Office 365. That being said, the rest work exactly the same. So the first backup will be a full backup, and then it's infinite incremental. So only the changed emails will be stored onto the RPS server. Now I've got fantastic news that comes out literally probably Friday. Friday will be Friday, or probably next Monday. We will be releasing our releasing our update 2. And with update 2, what we are able to do is with Office 365, we can actually store the data into a deduplicated data store. So we can utilize the deduplication data store we have over here and transfer the data to other locations if one needed. If you would have a DR side or an MSP side, you can replicate the data further if you want to. You can store the tape, you can manage everything from centralized console. And if you would like to use the Amazon services, Azure services, whatsoever, you can store the data in there if you would like to, or backup or protect the data over there. And lastly, we have the continuous data protection as part of our solution. So that is the RJ module that is in there. So that is the complete picture in a very simplified manner how we provide the solution to our customers today. So I will crack on a little bit more in depth about the Office 365 and archiving side of things. So the Office 365 that what we try to do here is to provide value and a return of investment and eliminate, more important, eliminate the risk for data loss. Of course, what I mentioned earlier, data needs to be recoverable for you, and Office 365 has not that retention, that long retention that you might need as an organization. It depends per organization, per country where you are, obviously. But if you need to recover an email older than XYZ, then you need to look further and have a solution in place that provide that. Now we provide those emails, and it's pretty simple. It is part of the UDP solution. So there's nothing else that you need to do. It's part of the solution other than an additional license. If you have an appliance, guess what? You are already licensed. So customers that have that appliance, the Arcserve UDP appliance, Office 365 license is included in that. If you have a socket license currently, then we have what we call user pack modules. So you can protect users up to for 100, 200, 300 pack, that kind of module. If you would like to know more about the licensing, contact your local account manager or partner, and they can help you further on that one. Go further into the UDP side of things. So we protect the emails, the calendars, contacts, everything that you can expect. Also, we can protect the archived email box within Office 365 and public folders, and I will show you that in a bit. You have the ability to actually select certain folders, items. You can say, okay, I just want to have the inbox, the send box, but skip the bin, for instance, and that kind of thing. So we do the backup to a deduplicated data store, and that is new, and I'm very excited about it. Since update 1, we had the ability to back that up, and that was already a great solution, but it was to non-dedupe data store because we were an item level backup and the rest of the product was a block level product. We've been working very hard to get that done, and I'm very excited to announce that we have that now, and that you can utilize the same data source that you have today for the backup. So that is how we provide your backup and to local side of things. Now you see in this picture, the Office 365, there's mention of a Windows proxy and an RPS server. The Windows proxy sometimes is utilized in larger environments. It's nothing else than a Windows server with an agent on it, and what it does is that could be the provider or the gateway between the backup and the Office 365 to alleviate actually more the recovery point service. So in smaller environment, everything can be done on the RPS server itself. So do you need a proxy server? Not always. It could be recommended in larger Office 365 environments that you have a Windows proxy, and that could be a VM. It doesn't need to be a physical server on that side of things. Talk about email archiving. So why use email archiving? First of all, there are a couple of reasons for it. Obviously, it is for increased efficiency and optimized storage. That's more an exchange story. So if you have on-premise email side of things, then obviously you might want to optimize your storage side of things. Now, with Office 365, that's not the case, obviously, because probably most of you have unlimited storage with Office 365. But if there's need for it, obviously you can actually say create policies within Office 365 that the maximum mailbox is XYZ, but emails older than whatsoever are stored anyway in our archiving appliance. Most important thing with archiving is about the meeting regulation for compliances. So if there's a legal case, for instance, how quickly can you find that email? If there's anything that you need to do in terms of HR or litigation, then you need to find some kind of solution that can preserve the records. Now, it is very important that when you have this kind of solution, that the emails are not tampered with. So they can be used as a proof in cases that if it comes to that point, for instance. But also, you need to provide a auditing log on top of that. Now, what is very important with email archiving is the level of access. So here's a quick picture of our topology, and I'm going to start with the right and go to the left from this side. I mentioned the topology. So why is that important? Now, if I look into the topology itself, if you are an IT administrator, a super admin or an admin in this case, and I'll explain them in a second, both of them do not have access to the emails itself. So if you have an Office 365 solution and you provide this archiving solution, then these two people or two roles will not be able to actually read the emails. So that's very important in terms of compliance and legislation, especially with the new GDPR coming up into the market, where you have certain roles that are not allowed to look into it, but certain roles that must look into it. Now, what does the super admin do? Now, the super admin is the infrastructure manager. So it actually installs the virtual appliance. So it is installed as a VMware, OVF, or as an Hyper-V appliance, or alternative as an Amazon AWS AMI machine. And that's the way that we go to the market. Can it be installed in Azure? Yes, you can utilize the Microsoft Hyper-V image into Azure as well. And we are busy to create a marketplace solution for Azure at one point. Now, the superadmin manages literally the product itself, the infrastructure. So the resources, make sure it's healthy, etc. It also provides access to one account, which is the admin account. The admin account is the email administrator, whoever managing your Office 365. That's the person that is your admin account. He's actually granting access to the archiving for auditors and employees. So the auditor itself is the person that sits and that can go through the index, do the search, tag emails, tag and make notes. And when we add tags and make notes, they are virtual. So they're not actually tampering the email, they are actually sit next to it as metadata. And obviously the employee itself has access to it, whether it's via a web interface or for an Outlook plugin. Now the customer side, obviously we talked to with this archiving solution, we talk about that the service is an Office 365, but if you have an Exchange or a Gmail and Domino server, that's all supported as well. So going quickly into the archiving benefits and features, it's a single instance storage, so that's pretty important obviously. So if you have an email that's sent with an attachment of a megabyte and sent to 100 people, we just store that once. So to be more efficient with the storage cost side of things. We do provide that simple and advanced search. It is really simple and easy to use, but it's also great for tagging, great for making notes for the HR or for the data protection officer. It's a multi-tenant solution, so you can set up multi-tenant, and multi-tenant can also be used within an organization itself. So, for instance, if your organization has multiple countries, each country has its own domain, for instance, you can set up that per domain, because each country can have its own regulations and policies. So you can set up per country then on that manner. Obviously, we support Office 365 and other clouds, and we mentioned that earlier, and we do have an Outlook plugin. One more point that I want to pick out on this one is the message migration. We have a integration functionality that you can use, so we can actually integrate all the emails. So emails that are already in today, we can create PST files and import those PST files into our solutions for ingestion if needed. So with that, what I will do next, I will start a demonstration of, first of all, the backup side of things, and then I will go into the archiving side of things. And after that, there's time for questions, and we can use the question box. So let me just open up my demo environment. There we go. This is my console. I'm not going too deep into UDP itself today. If you have questions about that, again, we utilize the Friday webinars for that, because there's a lot to talk about onto our solution itself. But this is the global dashboard where you can see the backup status, your storage usage, your service level profiles, and your recovery points. Now we focus on the backup itself. So what I normally do is we go to the resources, and as you can see, I've got already an Exchange Online. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I have only access to my own account, unfortunately, so I don't have a whole domain that I can actually demonstrate on that, but I have access to my account. So you can see in my account that I protect. You can see I've got the last backup is done yesterday in about 4 minutes, and it's the Exchange side of things. Now, how do we protect our solution? Normally what we're going to do is we have our nodes, and in the nodes is where we actually protect all the machines. And secondly, what is important to know is where we store it, which is the recovery point server. Now the recovery point server is the RPS server in this case, and you can have multiple RPS servers with multiple data stores. Now, I'm running at the moment on 6.5 update 1, and update 1 is the version that we use non-deduplicated data stores for our Office 365, which is why I have this non-dedup in there. So from next week, we have the ability to actually store that in a dedup data store, so I can utilize my above data store. So you set up the data stores in here, and one thing with the data stores, obviously, when you create a data store, you can set up an encryption onto the data store itself, and that is 256 encryption, so the data is stored encrypted on disk for you. Going back to the backup itself, if you are familiar with Arcserve UDP, you know we work with plans. If you're not familiar with Arcserve UDP, the way we work is a plan. And what is a plan? A plan consists of tasks. It's a workflow. So what you can do, the first is set a lot of tasks into a single plan, and it makes life a lot easier. So in traditional backup methods, what you do is you create a backup, and that's a backup job, and you create a lot of machines in there, and that's it. Then you create a backup copy job, which is a new job, and you have to create all those machines again with all kind of other policies you might set. And then you might want to replicate or copy to tape or whatsoever. So that's another job. So you have multiple jobs with the same configuration over and over again. The way we work with Arcserve is we use that plan, and the first task is the backup task, and then the second task we can do automatic testing, we can do replication, etc. Now I'm going to show you that in a second. So what I do is I go into Office 365, click my Office 365 plan, and what you will see in a second is that we are able actually to set the destination. Now first of all, you can see here my proxy. So that's the proxy server that I talk about, and in this case, in my scenario, I'm using my RPS server as well. So you can add another server if you want to. And as I mentioned, I only do my own node, my own email accounts. But obviously, when you do protect an organization, you can simply click add, and what you can then do is provide your credentials. Now, if your credentials have discovery management and application impersonation into it, then what you will see is the domain. And then from the domains, you can select the users you want to protect. You can create groups of users you want to protect, etc. So you can be pretty easy in that, and pretty schedule or pretty scale out that side of things. What you then can do is set some options in here. So I'll got here backup all folders, but you can, what I mentioned already earlier, you can select the folders to protect, where there's to exclude from the backup, where's to include. So I can say, you know what, I just want the inbox, and I want my outbox, and I want my the outbox is not, it's always empty obviously, but the sent items, stuff like that. I can just set that in. Or if you leave it on backup all items, I'll leave it on backup all items. If you want to do backup in place archiving, so this is the Office 365 archiving, not our archiving solution, but if you want to use the Office 365 archiving solution, you can back that up. And if you want to back up recoverable items inside that, you can do that as well. Now the destination is in this case my RPS server, and in this scenario it's still my non-dedup data store. I can add an additional password protection on top of it. So on top of my encryption, I can add this. Why would you use that? For instance, if you replicate to another location, to a service provider, that kind of thing, you always need that session password to recover the data. So it's an additional security feature that you can have into it. Then you set the schedule. In the schedule is pretty easy to use. In my scenario, in my lab, I keep everything quite small, but obviously you can add multiple days in there, or multiple weeks. So I can set my dailies in there, I can set my weeklies in here. So let me add some weeklies and some monthlies in here. So I can set pretty easy the schedule for the backup. So daily, weekly, monthlies, and I can set different recovery points. So by standard it is about seven dailies, 5 weeklies and 12 monthlies. That's a year of data stored on your disk. So you can recover a year of data. If you want to back up every every 15 minutes. You can do so. You can set up every 15 minutes. And what is a quite nice functionality in here as well is the disk rate schedule, the throttle schedule. So you might want to use this, especially in the beginning, because Office 365 is of course could be quite big, especially if you've got a large organization, and it can take several days to back up the first round, depending on the network and the upload speeds. So it is very important maybe to throttle so we don't eat all the bandwidth for your network. So you can set up schedule and say during the work days that backup can just utilize XYZ amount of bandwidth. Then you have your advanced options. If you would like to run some commands before and after, you can set up alerting, etc., etc. So you can see it's pretty default but very easy to use. Now what I have in my tasks, I've got a second task, and I'm actually testing my backup that I take from Office 365. So I can actually do an assured recovery testing, make sure the data is not corrupted. So what I do is I mount that data as a virtual disk to my backup server, and what I test is that there's no corruption in that email whatsoever. So that is a great functionality to have, and I can schedule that as well. So I can say just do that on Sundays or whatsoever. So I can say run that test only on Sunday between 8 and 6. And I can continue like that. There's an advanced option there as well. So if you would like to have an additional script, you can run that as well. And then I can go on. I can say, you know what, I'm going to replicate my data. So this is all Office 365 data. And then this is quite the unique side of things. So I want to replicate that to my remote side. So I have the data stored in the cloud with Office 365. I have the data stored in my main data center, and I have the data stored, for instance, on my offsite location. So I have 3 copies of data. And if you want to, you can even go, you know what, I want to have an offline copy, a copy recover point. I can copy that to a local disk, a cloud storage again. So there are people that want to use that on a USB disk. If you want to, I'm more than happy to do so, or we are more than happy to do so. So you can see it's very easy to build up your task list. And this is not only for Office 365, but this is for all the products. Cool, so that's how we protect the Office 365 side of things. So I've got 10 minutes more. So what I will do is I'll go into the archiving solution so far. So if there's any questions on the Office 365 backup, please put them in the question box, and I will try to answer them later on. So if I go into the archiving side of things, let me just look out. We mentioned earlier that we have 4 levels of access. First of all, the super admin. So let me log into as a super admin, and what the super admin sees is first of all the monitoring side of things and basic administration of the appliance. So I can, by default, I log into the health, so I can see what's going on, how many emails, etc., etc. If everything is healthy, the storage side of things. I can configure the appliance over here, so I can set up my fully qualified domain names, IP addresses, time zones, and I can set up the default retain message policy. Now, if an organization doesn't set any policies whatsoever, then this value is being used. If I want to increase storage space, simply add it to VMware or Hyper-V, and we can check it. We can then automatically increase the disk without any reboots, and I can do basic administration from here, set alerting, and add SSL certificates whatsoever. Now, what's the main important thing with the super admin? The super admin sets first of all the domain. So it sets a domain. It creates then a profile that has access to those domains, and then it will create actually the administrator account. So it will set up the first level, and it will provide access to the administrator account. So if I log out and I go into an administrator account, what you will see is a little bit different. Oh, let me just log in. There we go. So I'll log into the dashboard first of all, and you can see I can see my oldest records. That's the day I installed the appliance, how many emails are processed whatsoever. So I've got a PowerShell script that runs every so often that create emails for me, otherwise I won't have to able to demonstrate. So the way I set it up in my environment, I'm using a local Exchange server. To demonstrate this, I don't have access to Office 365 on that side of things, but it was very similar to setup. And the functionality is exactly the same. So you can see here the dashboard itself. I can see some accounting, so the oldest records, the newest records, message sent on email address and per domain, that kind of thing. And I have an audit log. So with the order log, I can see what's going on, which user, what IP address, what kind of action there is, and I can also export that as a CSV file. Now, the most important thing for the administrator account itself is the administration bit, because that's what the administrator does. So first of all, what it does, it provides access. Now you can see here I've got two accounts, myself and an audit account. The audit account is always created manually, so that is created by the administrator, and that role is only a manual role that can be created. And then what we have is groups. I don't have any groups, but what you can do with groups, for instance, if you have, your organization has a marketing department, a sales department, you have multiple people that have access to the same mailbox. You can give that access to the archived mailbox as well. So if there's a sales email box, the whole group can then have access to the archive. That's basically what it does. Now I do provide LDAP access, so every users, all the users in my Active Directory have access as a user, and as soon as I actually enable my LDAP, all the users of this specific OU are then created as an LDAP user. So they have automatically access as a user to this console, and they'll be able to do so. I can create multiple LDAPs if you have different OUs. If you want to, you can go on a higher level if you want to. I just created a different level. It is important actually to say, make sure your administrator account and your audit account, for instance, are not in the same OU, because once they're in the same OU, they actually get user access. So then I have some import functionalities, so I can manually import some emails. That is per email box. If not the quickest way to do so, but it is an easy way to say, okay, I've got a new user, I just want to add only his emails to it. We do have a mass ingestion tool as well that is available. Now, and then we set the rules. So the rules are pretty important, obviously. That's where the strength is of this solution. So first of all, you can set up some exception rules. So what and what not to archive. Maybe some email boxes that you don't want to archive, or emails from a monitoring solution or whatsoever. You can say, okay, everything from a specific email box I do not want to archive. Then what you do is you set your retention rules. So in my case, I keep it very low, but I can set an attention rule. I can say from my Arcserve.lab, for instance, I want to keep it 365 days, or if I want to say from or to an specific email address, I want to keep it so many days, etc., etc. On top of that, I have a legal hold. So the legal hold, those mails are kept forever inside the system. These are more hold for the board members and those kind of things for the legal side. So you have these different kind of rules in there. So you can set specific rules pretty easy. And as you see, so far, I don't see any emails. I can see monitoring side of things. I can monitor the audit logs whatsoever. Now, if I log out and now log in as an auditor, the auditor will have another view. So first of all, what the auditor sees is it's got a search screen. It comes up default with a search screen, and I can put search criteria in and do a quick search. I can save them, or what I can do, I can say, you know what, I want to have everything in here. So I can say, you know what, I want to have everything of protection, for instance, and it needs to have an attachment into it. I can do a search, and there's nothing in there, so I know there's nothing on that side of things. So if I go back and I say protection, maybe protection without a search. Oh, I'm pretty sure I had something in there, maybe typo. Oh, I see. No protection. There you go. Make sure you have the right item in there and not use the email protection. So you can see I've got protection in the subject, so I can find them there with attachments. Now what I can do here is, so you know what, I'm going to select a few of these and I'm going to tag them and say protect, say case 001, for instance. So I create a tag on them, and they will be tagged, and I can then search on them later on if needed. I can make that pretty easy. If I want to download them, I can select download. If I want to download, select them, or all of them, I can do pretty easy to do that. I can also select the email itself and make an email, make a note on that, and say what is this, for instance. So I can make a note and save that, and that note will be saved as well. Now, obviously, the auditor itself has a log as well. So you can see here, I've done the search, I've viewed the message as an auditor. I can see Harold, myself, as a user, has been logging in, logging out, etc. You have the ability to save the searches as well. So in this case, I can see the save search. So if I click them, you can see it comes up, but also with the updated version. So even if I saved them a while ago, the search query, I saved it a while ago, it comes up with all the data from now. So pretty easy to use. And lastly, I've got the references. So who's in legal holds, what kind of tags are there, and you can see the new tags that I created are in there as well. So it's pretty easy to use. So it's a very powerful tool. I think the most important thing on this archiving, you can see how quickly it works, how fast the indexing is. It is pretty fast. Now the big difference between an auditor and a user, the auditor sees all the emails. So from everyone that is configured inside the Office 365 console, they can see the email. Now the user, of course, if I log out, if I log out and log in as a user, sees only its own emails. And you can see, I can see my search, my saved searches, my references in here as well. Obviously, we do have a Outlook plugin as well. So you do not have to go straight into it. So this is my Outlook plugin of my client, or this is my Outlook client. And what we have is an add-in, and I can pretty simply press search over here, and I can see all the emails. And so if I do an emails and say Charlie at, for instance, and it should come up with a lot of emails from Charlie, for instance. So there you go. So I can select those emails from Charlie. I can read them over here if I want to. There's nothing in those emails, and I can import the selected. So I can import those selected emails quite easy, and when I do that, they arrive into a folder in my Outlook. So I have these folder here, and they arrive over here into my folder. So that's a very quick overview of the two solutions we provide for Office 365. So if I go just back to my presentation deck. So what's next? Obviously we have data sheets, and you can try it. We have, if you're not using UDP, you can download the software itself from our website, arcserve.com/UK free backup software trial, or the archiving appliance. You can try that as well. There's both of them have 30-day trials on them. The UDP appliance, there's an OVF image or AMI image or Hyper-V image. It's a very simple install. If you need any help, let us know as a pre-sales team or your local representative, because we can help you out and we can set that up for kind of anything. The thing is with the archiving, it is very simplified to set up. We have a great manual online how to set up the Office 365, how to set up within Office 365 or within Exchange if you still have Exchange. So with that, it comes to an end of the presentation itself. So let me get the questions out. Let me just undock that one. And it's a question in Dutch, so I have to translate that, Norbert, sorry. So if you have any questions, please use the question box below, and I'll have time for them to answer them right now. So the question is, can we test without the license that we have? So yes, you can test the Office 365 backup if you need to. We provide trial licenses purely for the Office 365 backup as well. So if you are a UDP customer already today, you have your own socket license today. If you want to test Office 365, contact, in your case, Jeroen, Norbert, but contact your local representative, and we can provide you with trial licenses of the Office 365 backup solution. Any more questions? So if there's any questions, please use the box. I'm here. Use me. No worries, Norbert. You know where to find us. So I'm doing the Dutch region, so hence why I know you're Norbert. So I've got the compression. Next question: what's the compression ratio for archiving? So we use We use single instancing for archiving, so we're not using the deduplication engine just as yet. So it's single instancing and a maximum compression ratio that we use. So it's the maximum compression that we can use inside of it. What is actually very important to mention, and not mentioned that earlier, but all the emails are encrypted individually inside our archiving. So it's the emails literally are only in the archive encrypted itself one by one. The license, is it, sorry Richard, is it the license for archiving or is it the license for backup? I assume it's the license for archiving. So archiving is licensed on a per user basis. I think the minimum pack is 50 users and 100 users, 200 users, 300 users, etc. And the Office 365 backup is licensed on the user base or on the appliance capacity base. Thank you. Yeah, it's just mentioned the archiving. Are there any more questions? I don't see any questions coming in. This session is being recorded, so if you have any questions or you want to see a copy of this presentation, then this session is being recorded. So I will send it out to marketing once it is finished, and they will send it across so other colleagues or members of staff can watch this presentation and this webinar in total. If there are no further questions left, then I'm going to end the webinar. I would like to thank you for your attendance. We do apologize for the late invite in there. Next time we'll do it a bit quicker, so I apologize for that. But thank you very much for attending and have a great Wednesday.